I could not go back home for my reunion without coming over here to Vincennes, about a 20-minute drive from where I grew up, the city where I worked in radio for 10 years and where I went to junior college. And while I was here, everybody talked about history. Behind me is the George Rogers Clark Memorial. It is the largest building ever erected in this country to be a representative of and to honor a single person. Young George Rogers Clark captured the fort here in Vincennes in the only battle of the Revolutionary War that was not fought on the East Coast. And when he secured this area for America, he told all the other nations of the world, "We own this."
And if you look on early maps, there wasn't much here but Vincennes. But the capturing of the fort made it possible for those in the Far East to think about moving westward, hence the memorial.
Quite a building, isn't it? Reminds me a lot of all those years I spent in Washington, D.C. And just behind you is an area of grass that's been dug up a lot. Archaeology students have come here to try to prove that Fort Sackville was right here. That's the fort that our good buddy George Rogers Clark and his men captured. And you know, they found evidence that we are in the right place.
And the humble fort that was captured by George Rogers Clark and his men was built right here, so the monument was properly placed. And not that far away, there's another treasure.
And this is what in Vincennes they affectionately call the Old Cathedral. It's the oldest Catholic church out here. And I don't mean in Knox County, I mean in this part of North America. Because at one time it was the center of the Catholic Church for most of the continent, just as Vincennes was pretty much out here in the prairie, the center of the universe.
And Vincennes has markers commemorating the first cathedral, newspaper, bank, university, and on the Illinois side of the river, another monument.
And it is a beautiful monument put here in the 1930s to commemorate the event that happened in 1830 when a young man who had just turned 21, Abraham Lincoln, who spent his formative years in Indiana with his family, went over into Illinois, so that Illinois would eventually call itself the state of Lincoln. But this commemorates the passage over the Wabash before there was a bridge here. If I weren't afraid I'd get laughed off the internet, I would sing "Back Home Again in Indiana." And particularly when I got to the phrase "on the banks of the Wabash, far away." The Wabash River is right next to the George Rogers Clark Memorial. That's old Francis Vigo. There's a county named for him. He played a part in the Vincennes story.
A story of westward expansion that began with George Rogers Clark. And then civilization came moving out here. Finally, Abraham Lincoln came through, and he's remembered by this bridge. All of that clustered together in Vincennes, the true gateway to the West. I'm Dennis Daly.